All right. Today we're going to look at 2 Samuel chapter 6. This is going to pick up now that David's king over all of Israel, right? Not just Judah, but all of Israel. It's the United Kingdom. Starting at verse 1. David again gathered all the chosen men of Israel, 30,000. And David arose and went with all the people who were with him from Baalat Judah to bring up from there the ark of God, which is called by the name of the Lord of hosts, who sits enthroned on the cherubim. And they carried the ark of God on a new cart and brought it out of the house of Abinadab, which was on the hill. And Uzzah and Ahio, the sons of Abinadab, were driving the new cart with the ark of God, and Ahio went before the ark. So if we're not familiar with the Old Testament law, everything seems fine. Everything looks good here. But in reality, they've broken the law of God that he gave in Exodus regarding how the ark is to be handled, right? It should not be on a cart. It's what I'm sure, or what I presume David thought was a good gesture, putting it on a new cart. It does point out that it was a new cart, but it's not meant to be carried on a cart. It should be on poles. And David and all the house of Israel were celebrating before the Lord with songs and lyres and harps and tambourines and castanets and cymbals. You see, we got the first Hebrew rock concert going here. These guys are getting it. And they came to the threshing floor of Nacon. Uzzah put out his hand to the ark of God and took hold of it, for the oxen stumbled. That's no good, right? We're told when the law is given, and again in Numbers chapter 4, we're told you cannot touch it. That's why it's carried on poles. Incidentally, had they been carrying it, the oxen stumbling wouldn't have caused it to tip. So this whole thing happened because they disobeyed how it was supposed to be handled. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, and God struck him down there because of his error, and he died there beside the ark of God. And David was angry because the Lord had broken out against Uzzah, and that place is called Perez Uzzah to this day. And David was afraid of the Lord that day, and he said, "How can the ark of the Lord come to me?" So David was not willing to take the ark of the Lord into the city of David, but David took it aside to the house of Obed-Edom, the Gittite. That's interesting there. Verse 11 says, and the ark of the Lord remained there in the house of Obed-Edom, the Gittite, 3 months, and the Lord blessed Obed-Edom and all his household. It was told King David, the Lord has blessed the house of Obed-Edom and all that belongs to him because of the ark of God. So David went and brought up the ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David with rejoicing. So either he thinks that God got mad for a second and now he's safe to be around again, or he understands, the law is what the law was. Uzzah broke that law, and, these things have consequences. Now, nobody's saying he lost his salvation over this. Don't get too bent out of shape about it. In verse 13, and when those who bore the ark of the Lord had gone 6 steps, let's stop there. Notice this time, not a cart. These people need to bear the ark, right? They have to carry it. So once they had gone 6 steps, he sacrificed an ox and a fattened animal. And David danced before the Lord with all his might. And David was wearing a linen ephod. So David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouting and with sound of the horn. We had read previously all the instruments involved. We can look at that again in First Chronicles. Chapters 15 and 16 cover a lot of details about this trip, this time carrying the ark back to Jerusalem and the worship that happened during it and after it. Verse 16. As the ark of the Lord came into the city of David, Michal, the daughter of Saul, looked out the window and saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, and she despised him in her heart. And they brought in the ark of the Lord and set it in its place inside the tent that David had pitched for it. And David offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. And when David had finished offering the burnt offerings and the peace offerings, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord of hosts. And he gives them all He blesses them all. He gives them these gift baskets, and then all the people departed, each to their own house, right? It seems like a very joyous time, very celebratory. Everybody seems to have enjoyed it, except Michal. Verse 20. So notice that David blessed all the people first, and then goes home to bless his household. Right? But Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet David and said, "How the king of Israel honored himself today, uncovering himself today before the eyes of his servants, female servants, as one of the vulgar fellows shamelessly uncovers himself." So notice her big issue is she thinks that David was not very kingly. He didn't show much honor for a king. She says, how the king of Israel honored himself today. And why was he not acting kingly? Why was he not acting with honor? Is because he uncovered himself. Well, we're already told previously in the passage, and we're also told in Chronicles, that David was wearing a linen ephod. So let's not pretend like he was jumping around naked. What she's talking about is he was not wearing his royal garments, his royal clothing, his big crown, whatever it was. He wasn't dressed like royalty. He was dressed as a servant, right? He was dancing before God. So she's upset that David's kind of embarrassing for a king, right? Now, what would she have to base that off of? Her dad was Saul. Saul was the only king before David. Do you think Saul would have ever gotten out and worshiped like that? No. He wouldn't follow simple commands. Why would he ever give praise? You know? She thinks that kings are supposed to be like the other nations, like Saul was. But in reality, David is acting some of his most kingly right now. She's upset that it's embarrassing. It doesn't look good for him. It doesn't look good for her. She's worried about what other people think. In her mind, what would be the lowest of the low? Today, before the eyes of his servants, female servants. So not his servants, not even his servants, but his servants' female servants. In her mind, that's how low David made himself, because he was dancing and celebrating. Verse 21, and David said to Michal, "It was before the Lord who chose me above your father and above all his house to appoint me as ruler over Israel, the people of the Lord, and I will celebrate before the Lord. I will make myself yet more contemptible than this, and I will be abased in your eyes. But by the female servants of whom you have spoken, by them I shall be held in honor." And Michal, the daughter of Saul, had no child to the day of her death. So we don't know if it was because their relationship was wrecked, and they wouldn't be intimate anymore. We don't know if that's why she didn't have any children. We don't know if the Lord made her barren. We're not told that information. And at least it's implied that it's directly related to this incident. That's why she didn't have any children. This is in the ESV. I think the King James and the New King James might say, "in my eyes." Regardless of that, the passage reads the same. He's the lowest of the low. And when he says, "I will make myself yet more contemptible than this, and I will be abased in your eyes," where he currently is, or even lower, or abased in my eyes, again, where he currently is, or lower. The point is that there's no limit to the humility that he will show in his worship. It's between him and God. He's not worried about her opinion about it, regardless of the reading. I hope that blessed somebody today.